No, I'm going to disagree with all of you here, right? So I get that we should respect all these people, right? What they do helps, what they do is meaningful, that's fine. But from a societal perspective, why should we not grow the pie, right? Why should we not encourage our people to aspire to not better, but higher meaning jobs, right? Jobs that they really want to do. And we have the luxury of importing all these people who do the jobs we don't want to do.
So
welcome back to Wise and Shine. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Dawn, SG Budget Babe.
hey folks, Rakesh here.
And Anthony, I guess the old market updates crew is back.
We never left.
But we are doing something other than markets now.
No. We brought this together because we saw the news publishing, right? So, Forward Singapore, blah, blah, blah. Then I texted Dawn. I was like, hey, Forward Singapore, we should talk about it, right? So, in a matter of a week, we are in studio, right? So, today we are going to spend some time to talk about this Forward Singapore movement and just kind of share our thoughts. What do we think it's great? What do we think it's like can be better? What is missing? What is good? And
After
all that
digesting
jazz.
all the 180 pages, by the way.
Yes, we all read 180 pages.
180.
Yes, we never read like Straits Times headlines. then come and talk to you already. Okay?
Yeah, no summary, the actual primary source.
Yes. So we read everything. So maybe for a start, you all want to share your thoughts. Like, what is interesting to you within the Forward Singapore 180 page?
I'm going to steal your joke just now.
Hey.
So we were discussing and they said it was quite clear after reading the document that somebody read start with why, right? Yeah. The book start with why. I can echo with that. I thought okay, but jokes aside, what I really appreciated about it was I felt heard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a lot of the things that have been said over the years are finally, being documented in a 180 pager with the next PM's face, or now PM already, right? Hand over.
Yeah,
haven't.
All is well. All is well. Yes,
The next PM face, big over there, and that gives that, it's very symbolic because it shows that we're hearing you, your leaders, the government is hearing you. And I felt like, finally, but then the next question is, so are you going to give us what we want?
Every citizen's
I know
question.
what you're saying. I know, because when I read it, I was like, okay, a lot of motherhood statements. In a document like this, where you're trying to kind of set a vision and a path for the nation, you need these motherhood statements where it's big enough that everyone else can kind of like adjust their needs to it. And like kind of project your ideas on, but narrow enough for some sort of a defined path, right? So this kind of motherhood statements that is done well is very important, right? And I read, and there are a lot of little words that caught my attention. Love it.
I think just as a concept, if you don't mind me starting from there.
I love it just as a concept.
I mean, the whole thing is conceptual, right?
Including the words, the ideas, ideology thought behind it. But it felt as though, okay, so I mean, for a couple of years now, everyone's been saying, everyone just following the previous, ministers and the way that they set Singapore, and everyone's just been going through a template. I felt that this was their big opener, if you will, of we are here to stay, and they needed to craft a message and craft a new vision for themselves to take forth, because the old vision of putting a roof over your head, making everybody a bit more richer, blah, 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 that's gone. We're there. So
why is it gone?
Okay, in terms of where it was in 1960s versus 2000s, it's a very different. As a concept, I felt they needed to differentiate. They needed to create their own identity. And I believe this is that identity of, we want to hear from you. We want to move Singapore forward. What do we need to do to make that happen? As a concept, I believe that's my first initial reaction.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, their concept is quite clearly a lot softer. Right, there is a very marked shift away from the old, what they have called the old Singapore dream, the 5 C's, right? They haven't told you what new Singapore dream is, but that's no longer the dream.
No, the new Singapore dream is what we decide.
Yeah, but I mean, not yet.
Okay.
TBD, right?
And that was very jarring to me, because like a big part of the discussion was like, okay, the old Singapore dream is no
I was so
valid.
Excited. I was reading it on the taxi. I was like,
yeah, you thought they would define a new one.
I was like, so what's the dream now? You guys get to decide.
It's like the drama you watch, climax, then boom, don't care.
It's a bit of that.
then they cancel the show. No more.
One last episode.
I feel like we're getting cancelled.
No, but I think it's a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
And maybe at the end of the day, the Singapore dream and the reality of what the government wants to achieve is they give everybody the tools to achieve what they want, right? Which because there is no one template Singapore dream that everybody needs to achieve, right? So I think maybe that's the end
Maybe
game.
the inherent underlying message is that the Singapore dream is yours to write.
Yeah.
And not follow someone else's
The Singapore
5Cs.
dream is each Singaporean's dream.
Yes.
Right. I think that might be where we are going, but I'll let the leaders decide. If they use that tagline, please remind me. And as you said, the words they have always been using in throughout this report were very deliberate. And what I thought was quite interesting was that they did not mention meritocracy or merit at all.
Yeah.
I read until like page 80. I was like, where's the meritocracy?
Yeah.
Right? I stopped seeing this word.
There was one line going about learning means we focus on a broader definition of merit and in the context of education, right? But there is no Singapore is a meritocracy and all of that anymore.
And there's less also of hard work. Like hard.
But there's a lot of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
You are still responsible for yourself.
Correct. But like,
There is.
in the past, it used to be all about like, you must work hard. We are a meritocratic society. So
Yeah.
you're going to get those when you work hard. But now, not so much really in that whole
There's a lot
document.
of the government is going to do more, but citizens must take on the responsibility.
Yes.
The buck is very big.
And also contribute back to society instead of only
And
government
then if you do well, you
contributing.
must also help others.
Yes, correct.
You're not just helping yourself.
We expect you.
But I mean, okay, so to be very, very cynical, right? What is the government meant to say? I'm going to help you less? Cannot be what?
Yeah, fair.
So, I think that, so what they have put out is a good message, definitely. I like a lot of the messages that were given. I look at my tax bill, I don't really like that anymore. But for now, in concept, I like the message that's being given. Then it's just a matter of, I think the big question mark is how they're going to implement it and whether or not the reality is, what they are trying to portray it as, right? Or the reality will be what they are trying to portray it as and whether they'll be successful in pushing their policies to achieve these goals.
Yeah, so essentially it set out a little bit of that tone, and I think we can go on to discuss a little bit more about the specifics. Right? To be fair, I think the specifics are still quite limited, right, in terms of exact policies, but it does set the tone for a lot of the stuff. They put their names at page 2. Right, the people that contribute, you put your names. It's like putting your face on the medicine like that, It's a big thing, So all these things, I think it kind of helps to set a tone, and do not discount a document like that, because once you put it out there, you are allowing your supporters to coalesce around it. You're also allowing your critics to use it to attack you.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So these documents are chosen very specifically. I'm sure the words are very specific. Even the examples are very specific.
Yes.
Right? Don't when you read it, don't take it as like, it's just another example. No, these are selected examples, okay, for what it is. So we have decided to cover this Forward Singapore document and this idea, talk a little bit about these ideas, in 2 parts. Okay, so part 1, we're going to focus on the hard stuff, right? The economy, jobs, businesses, all those
Close
things.
to my heart.
Yeah, important. Because I think it's our platform, right?
And
Because
the second one more
yeah,
closer to
second one is the heart. Second one is like family, social, quality of life, some of the other stuff, right? So we're gonna separate this into a 2-part discussion. So if you kind of join us in part 2, okay, great. But you should be here first. Oh, and to be exact, the document is separate in a very different way. It's not like how we are doing it. Like the chapter 1 to chapter 9 is very different for how we're gonna do it. We just decided to rejumble them to get to a premise that works for our show and our audience. Okay, so based on that, maybe we start, right? So what are some of the things that stood out to you, as part of this like jobs, business, economy, stuff?
Or the very macro stuff.
Very
Right.
business, big things, jobs.
I go first. I think recognizing the anxiety that people feel towards jobs in this world where it is changing at a rate much faster than ever before. I mean, all along it's always been hard. Change is always hard, right? But I think now change is happening even faster than ever before, and that's going to be something that we have to address. So I like how the document, talk about things like AI and how we need to adapt to the times. I mean, on the way here, I even saw an ad by the government. I don't know whether it was Skills Future or something. They say like photography used to look like that.
Yeah,
then it
Skills
looked like
Future.
that. And now it's like that. What will next time? You need to go for upgrading, right?
Yes,
and I thought
yes,
that was very relevant because it's really something that people worry about. When you cannot accurately predict the future, what jobs do you go as a parent? What job should I push my kids towards, if any, in order to deal with the new reality? Like when I was a kid, my parents pushed me to become a lawyer. Sorry, daddy, mommy, I didn't go that route. I should have after learning how much.
After learning how much lawyers actually
Okay, but yeah, having said, like, it used to be clearer because our parents could push us in a certain direction knowing that we'll be more or less safe, right? But now we honestly have no idea because the jobs of today may not even exist anymore in the future. So how do we prepare them? Yeah, so
No,
I
I want to add on to that, right? I think more importantly is that the change cycles are getting shorter.
Correct.
Right, so it becomes harder to prepare, right? No, gone are the days of like, oh, we're gonna be a biochemical hub, we're gonna be a
We are
gaming
trying,
digital
we are still
hub.
trying. We are still
You know,
trying. We are all still
We are
trying.
trying to be an aerospace hub. I've heard that growing up, like 20 years of different hubs that we want to be. And you see many of your friends, I mean, we all grew up in the era where there was a lot of this kind of like, oh, we want to be this hub, that hub, this hub. And you see a lot of your friends making education decisions
Going
based
into
on
that
that.
direction.
right?
Yes.
Based on that. So you see a lot of people doing that, biochemical, like now don't know do what, right? Like, so,
No, still have. The job still exists now.
Yes, but the way it was done in the sense of like it used to be professed as like this thing will be the next big thing of the nation, and then you get a whole trove of people investing their energy, time, resources to study it, and then it usually falls flat. Not in the sense that it totally does not exist, but it's less than how it was marketed.
Yeah.
And then you see a lot of Singaporeans ending up having to shift to other jobs and change a career, and then they spend 4 or 5 years into that thing already, right? Which is problematic to begin with. But now the change is so fast that the government in the document don't even say much about like, oh, we are going to be the next hub of this thing or the next hub. I never see any hub, right? Like I don't see any big things. And in actuality, I saw a different view of this where it is about, okay, so we don't know where's the direction, like the economic direction is very messy. In the document, it said itself, right, that the change is very fast. We don't exactly, it's very hard to predict. So by extension, we're going to change it around to, instead of pushing everybody down a direction, we'll provide the platform for you to learn and make learning cheaper.
Change.
Right? Make learning cheaper, less painful, so
Correct.
that you can come in and out, right? So it's more of an ecosystem platform building process rather than like, oh, we're going there, right? So I think that was what really, caught me, rather than how it used to be done, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I like this approach actually.
I remember you said to me before, if government give me more money to study, right, maybe I'll be in and out of different jobs more often.
But I mean, at the end of the day, where the economy goes, where the country goes, what industries develop, it's literally trying to predict innovation, right?
Yes.
Like a year ago, did anybody see ChatGPT being the thing it was and AI being the thing it was? Hard. Right. So prediction is always a fool's game, right? It's good that we are trying not to be ahead of the curve and try to put to where the puck is skating to mix analogies, but that rather we want to put people with the skills so that whatever comes out after that, right, they can adapt, or we have the workforce to adapt and we have the workforce to thrive in that sense, right? In whatever the new economy looks like. Of course, there are big themes that they will need to say, green economy, low carbon, AI, because very clear themes, right?
Lame one, bro. I look at the thing.
I mean, very few concrete things about how we get there, but very, very clear themes that they want to focus on, that they still see. They just don't want to push too many people in. I mean, you look at the com science grads now, right? There's so many of them. Every uni has computing school. Yeah. Everybody wants to do it. Then
in my time, computer science wasn't even that popular.
Yeah, it's NUS computing last night is along the alley. It's like it's like a corridor.
Yeah.
Really?
NUS computing is a corridor that business school people walk to.
Don't
FSS.
have the wire from CS. Don't have. Now change already.
You need to, and that was always a joke, right? Where the government said was kind of a sector that was falling behind. You need to go, if you are going to uni, you need to go to uni in that sector. Because by the time you graduate, by the time you start working for a few years, that's when that cycle shifts and you are in the rising cycle with some experience rather than whatever is hot at the moment.
Yeah, engineers are unicorns, by the way, desperately looking for engineers.
Yeah.
Right?
Data scientists and all as well.
It is, but engineers are not even going into engineering jobs.
Yeah, because the jobs are not paying well, and that's a part of the discussion. Wait. Yeah, but what do you
No, I think I think coming back to Dawn's point on what job is safe and all of these things, it's actually really, really hard, right? Because everything is changing. And I think what we really need to focus on, and something that they touched on when they said building I'm going to use this phrase, platform as a country.
Wait, they said that?
No. I said I'm going to use it.
Platform as a country.
I mean, in the tech world, everyone's
Country
like
as a platform.
SaaS. Actually, now the new thing is platform as a service, right? Platform as a service is actually a thing. So now it's platform. But anyway, I think what we really need to focus on is transferable skills. And I think that's what they're trying to lead towards, without saying those words explicitly in the document.
Country as a platform. So come to Singapore, you want it to be your platform for the world.
Well, not come to Singapore, you're born here, right?
Didn't really have a choice.
No choice
Okay,
here.
no, staying is a choice.
And I think that's so important. And that's where, leading towards this pay gap, they want to reduce the pay gap among jobs and stuff like this is important, because I believe we weren't allowed to change industries growing up. At least that was what was in my head whenever I grew up studying and so on and so forth. If you do this in uni, go ahead and get that job,
that's
and
your
then
life,
wait.
right? That's your
Correct.
path.
It's done. Right? What was it? Accountant, lawyer, two more, right? Doctor and whatever it is. The last one is. Where else now it's not really like that, because everything can change in every single way.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite. I love the fact that they brought that up. Let me put it that way. I love it because if I'm sitting here doing a podcast because I like doing it, and the more we change the mindset, or people have the mindset to say, I want to do what I like to do, the better it is for the society.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the part that I find a bit scary, which is the go with your passion. I start to see in the document it's very clear, right? That it talks about good jobs go beyond just good paychecks, right? I think that's where we are going with this. Right? Good jobs go beyond good paychecks. They must have meaning. They must have all that stuff, right? So it is a changing aspiration of the population, right? I think that is why it's reflected in the document. But I really want to warn the population. It's like there are only so many jobs that can give you meaning. If you so happen to be one of the people that found a great job that pays you well, great, go for it, right? I think that's the best case scenario. But I really want to caution more people from trying to attach your meaning of life and your purpose into a career, right? And when you bind that, right, it makes the search for a good career even harder. It's like now it has to be good paying. On top of that, it must give you meaning in life, right? And on top of that, it must stay for long enough so that during the change cycle, right, you're not kena, right? So it gets harder and harder. Although I recognize that Forward Singapore highlighted that, but I will caution people don't be too embroiled in that.
I think in the document, they didn't state about higher paying jobs as well as passionate. I think they just said go for the passionate ones, and we'll do our best to try and make sure that it's not very far away from something else.
They didn't really use the word passion, more of fulfillment.
Purpose.
Yeah,
Purpose.
They use the word purpose.
Okay, even heavier.
Correct. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Passion is a level for the amount of pain that you can tahan, right? Purpose is like meaning of life, very elevated. Yeah. So, okay, and I'm not saying that it's about the higher paying jobs per se, but I'm putting it out there from a PMET's perspective, right? From a lot of the middle class working professionals, which are our audience. In their head, right, is the jobs you must pay good, right? Good
I still need to eat.
Yeah, I still need, not just eat, I need to do more than that, right? My lifestyle must hit a certain style, and I still must have meaning, and I think that is a bit scary.
Because, right, it's how we define and construct that meaning. So it's not so much personal, but being able to go to work, and in that work recognize that what you're doing helps people or contributes in a certain way. It doesn't have to be tied to your identity. Yeah, but I'll use myself as an example. Because a lot of people ask me to quit my job, right? Especially when they say you do so many things, or you got your blog and you got so many things going on. I'll just quit. I'll do it full time. And I say I don't, because I actually quite like my corporate job. Not that I like the pain, but that when I wake up and I do my work, I recognize the value of the work that I do to other people's lives, to the society, to economy. And that is good enough. And of course, then the pay is not bad. So then it helps me to stay on. And this is something that I think Singapore really lacks, which was why I like in the whole document when they talk about like narrowing the pay gap, getting more respect for other professions. They said hand and heart work and not just head work, right? I really like that part because if we look at other countries, jobs like bus drivers are very respected. But in Singapore, if you say you're a bus driver, the older generation will scold you. Right? Because they say, why you go and be a bus driver, go and be lawyer, go and be doctor, go and work in tech, go and do all these. But in the Western world, not so much. Bus driver is a very respected job. When I talk to my kid, he would tell me, I want to be a bus driver. Because he gets that from the cartoons and it's a meaningful job because they make the cartoon character like in Peppa Pig say, I bring the kids safely to school. It's a very it has purpose. It's not so much that like your identity is tied to it, but it becomes something like I am Dawn, but when I step into my corporate work, okay, then that is the purpose that I'm fulfilling in this time or in that period. And I think that's what the document seems to be pushing towards. That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah. To double down on that, right? Garbage truck drivers are very respected around the world in the Western country.
Yeah, but not in Singapore.
No, in Singapore, they'll consider you low SES and look down on you, right? It's in the textbook. Right?
Exactly.
I think that went viral.
The cartoons also use that as a bad example, which
that's
is
one.
I have a friend who worked in like social services, right? And they actually did a survey with some people with the data set, right? I will not name who. And apparently there is a premium to the willingness of people to do these jobs. So that means, right, like if let's say like what is the worst job that you would do? Maybe do boba tea seller, right? The stigma is not as bad, right? Boba tea seller, maybe 3,000, you will do it. 2,500, okay, right? But if I ask you to do the garbage truck, you will expect 5,000. There is a premium attached to that perceived inferiority, right? So there is some studies around this to suggest that premium that people seek just to account for that,
discomfort in the
that
job.
discomfort as a result of like societal ideas being that it is inferior. So it's a very interesting side thing. Just thought I throw it in.
No, I think that's great because you see that in certain industries, what you call risk pay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? When you go work in a mine, when you do police work, there's additional risk pay or risk allowance, whatever they call it. Is that something that we need to throw in for these? That's a question.
Yeah, but I mean, no, I'm going to disagree with all of you here, right? So I get that we should respect all these people, right? What they do helps, what they do is meaningful. That's fine. But from a societal perspective, why should we not grow the pie, right? Why should we not encourage our people to aspire to not better, but higher meaning jobs, right? Jobs that they really want to do. And we have the luxury of importing all these people who do the jobs we don't want to do.
So, counter argument to that is, why do you think that is not a higher meaning job?
No, so if they want to be a garbage collector, go ahead, right? You can do it. You can have a decent pay. You can be respected. So they should all be respected. That's not the point, right? But we should also not be pushing people into these jobs, right? We have the ability to essentially buy our way out of trouble, right? To grow the pie, to have a bigger surplus that the entire society can share. So, sure, we need to respect these people. We need to give them, we need to compensate them adequately. They all need to have a decent standard of life. Fine, we all agree with that, right? But I don't think it should become a matter of all these jobs are glorified and therefore they are die the jobs we need to do.
Good. I actually, when I was reading the Forward Singapore document, at first I was quite concerned because I was like 80 pages in or maybe 70. I can't remember how many. I was like, why is there no discussion about protecting the downside of professionals, right? Like, because we talk about all these like cyclical changes becoming faster and shorter, then we need to realize that a lot of these working class professionals, which is our audience and a lot of entrepreneurs, they will get impacted by these cycles, right? And their pain is as bad, it also be very bad. And it's a capital stacking process from a nation's perspective, right? You train this person to be an engineer, or you train this person to be like, a scientist of some sort, sorry, no insult to scientists, scientists of some sort. And then they get phased out in a job cycle. And within this period, then they end up no choice. They get underemployed, right? They work in like let's say Grab or something, right? They do some of these things just to tie through. And solely because what? Because there's a market cycle out there. They are financially not as prepared. Maybe there's some uncertainties at home. I don't know how big is this pocket, but if the assumption is market cycles are going to be tighter, industries are going to go through changes faster, then this proportion of people are going to be bigger. Right? That's the natural thought process, right? More people will have to do very big shifts, and these people need the kind of support. We don't want them to end up as a driver. I really don't want them
long term.
Yeah, long term, right?
term,
Like,
yeah.
and I don't even want them to do it short term, right? Like, I think as a nation, and there's a little bit of a discussion in the Forward Singapore document talking about like some sort of unemployment support, to help to transition people, blah blah blah. It's not very specific lah, but I've when I read that, okay, finally.
There is a new policy coming up.
That is the part that they're addressing.
Yeah,
Okay, but
yeah.
I'm going to stop you there because I feel the bigger problem is really the social inequality now. So that's why like they cannot also focus too much only on this group when the numbers are not yet there. The unemployment numbers are not that high yet for them to address it formally in this document. I think it's a very good point. It will get high. It may, hopefully not, but it may get higher. And that's what they were hinting at in the document when they talk about all these changes and AI. But at this moment, it's not something they can commit to changing because the problem is not big enough yet. The bigger problem is the people in the healthcare sector, people in the garbage truck, dishwashers, and all these little jobs that don't get their recognition, but yet are important for society to function. And if we use your argument, which I don't disagree with, we can buy our way out, get other people to come and do jobs that Singaporeans don't really want, like construction or garbage truck. But what about like in healthcare, right? I know of friends who genuinely find a lot of meaning in wanting to be like a nurse, a caregiver in the healthcare setting and all. But unlike my friends in the same jobs in the US, they have struggles with that here because the recognition and the pay and the hours is
So is it a
completely
recognition issue from society or is it a structural issue from the organization you're working at?
I think it's more of
Could be a mix of both,
society.
Right? So, I have respect for them. That's recognition from society. The hospital overloads them because not enough. That's a structural issue that the organization
Fair.
needs to solve.
Yes.
Fair.
True.
Right.
It's also the pay, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I say it's both. Because yes, it's a massive structural problem coming from someone that worked in the healthcare space. But at the same time, we as a society look at jobs and respecting jobs about their pay and pay only.
Yes, correct.
So
But
therefore, I say
that's
it's
a personal issue as well, right?
No, but it's personal for me. But if everyone thinks it becomes a society problem.
Fair, right? That's a fair
Well,
point, right?
yeah. So the point is that you need to change. Okay, so two things. One is you need to change individuals' perspectives, right? I think slowly with
Which
the
is where
younger,
the document also
Yeah,
talks
also
about.
did, yes,
which
exactly.
is, I think slowly with our generation that's beginning to change, right? I mean, I really don't see my peers looking down at people in a sense or judging people's worth by their paycheck or net worth. Right. So I think that's one. Two is, there is I think the bigger problem is organizational issue, right? And trying to, in a sense, cheapen out or not spend on reserves or however you want to frame it to say that, okay, fine, we recognize these people, but we are not willing to pay them, right? Because who are the employers of nurses?
The government.
Right. So if you want to change the perception, you want to, change and reduce the wage gap. Hey, I see somebody who can do something about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Instead of asking people to clap for them.
It's true. I don't need a clap.
don't
Okay,
need a
so,
clap.
okay. I know I say that in a very
We do
brush.
clap. We did clap for them,
I
by
did
the
clap for
way.
them.
I know I say it in a very brushed off way. Like I don't need a clap. Okay, but to be fair, I would love a clap, but I want a 30% pay increment, right? Such that I can go closer to a median wage, because it is really affecting quality of life. And if you want dignity in jobs, then the
You need to
people
give them
that
a
work
good
the
life.
jobs, have to have a decent, good life. Like if everybody that work all these like dirty jobs or like like with hands and with the heart or whatever, they can live like how the financial professionals are doing day to day, right? It's great. Right, then that's great, right? Then by extension means those jobs will lose its stigma, right? And
Yes.
we can pay them properly, because I do agree, Anthony, that I really don't like it that it is just a talk of like, people must be more appreciative, blah blah blah. Where I think we need a little bit more of that wage arrangement to kind of go in with lah. Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your chief financial coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yeah, now back to the show.
I'm gonna throw something, maybe a spanner in the works, where I'm conflicting myself on these hard and hand jobs, right? I came across, I was talking with someone and I came across this idea of the economy. And we were just thinking, it's like, we need society to be unequal. Unequal? One of them.
Unequal.
It's okay, we're not
inequality.
better.
We need society to be unequal, right? Because if I'm going to get someone to come in to paint my house, I'm willing to be able to pay them less than I am for me to get out of bed. Which is why you're talking about foreign workers, right? So I'm willing to pay him, I don't know, $100 to come in and paint my living room. But if that same thing is going to cost $1,000, I'm going to go and do it myself.
And that's fine, right?
So that's to a certain extent,
right? And that's fine, and that's why a lot of the Australians,
yes, a lot of DIY,
right?
a lot of DIY, of course.
Yeah.
But at the same time, then comes to so that when I was reading this document, this sprung back into my mind. Okay, if that's the case, Singapore has largely grown on imported labor.
Yes, yes.
Is that a complete shift we're going to deal with? What happens if tomorrow I want to become a construction worker? And in Australia, they earn a ton of money. Tradies are the most respected and the highest. They earn more than doctors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
what does that mean for Singapore? What does it mean for the dormitory workers or the companies that import all of these? So for me, it had these questions that obviously is going unanswered until we see a bit more of what's going on.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think
Okay,
about it? Did that spring?
I have a view on this, right? Essentially, we talk a lot about the jobs, all that kind of stuff, which is great. But the businesses need to hire, right? So if businesses hire or government need to hire, somebody got to pay for the thing, right? So when we talk about that, if we bring it back to how can this happen, right? Then this whole productivity thing has to kind of come into the discussion. And with I am honestly from the camp that there's too much cheap labor around to incentivize innovation. Okay, yes. So there's just too much like foreign labor. You can just bring them in. There's all these passes and all these different things. I know the government has kind of kept it, but this is a 30-year immigration policy that is now finally seeing maybe it's a bit too much, too quickly, right? So with rampant cheap labor, it fundamentally impedes innovation because I don't need to spend 100,000 to upgrade the system. Yes, I don't need 100,000 to upgrade the system. I can pay $200. Someone else will come in and settle within this.
Sorry, that's my daily life in sales, by the way.
Yeah, right. So exactly, right. So with that in mind, that is a structural shift that needs to happen, and I think there is a little bit of the inkling in the Forward Singapore document. They don't dare to go too far, which I can kind of understand why, because it's your 30-year policy. There are a lot of incentive structures that needs to be broken for this to move forward. Okay, so I think there's the element of that. By extension, also means that I think for a lot of Singaporeans, we gotta be real with what are the industries that can stand in Singapore. Okay, and whatever that can stand is already standing, right? Like your finance, your port, like some of these industries are there, business solutions, and they will be there. So if your passion, purpose, whatever it is, great, good on you. You're not in this discussion. You don't really care. It's like, I just want to buy my next condo, right? so it's a very different discussion. But if we're talking about a chunk of people that are thinking these jobs pay pretty well, but I don't really want to do these jobs. They can play this game, right? But they don't want to play because they feel like it's empty. They want to do something else. They go and start a kopitiam behind. They do a cafe. They do artists,
which is fine. There's a place for every job.
It's true, but you got to fundamentally grapple with the idea that it's just very hard to make the same level of quality of life because there is no industry in these things.
Or actually, might you argue that they have a higher quality of life, just lesser pay?
Okay, they have a lower material quality.
Material
of
quality,
labor.
yes,
about
yes.
the time flexibility.
Yeah, so
and
something
everything
needs to
else.
go, right?
Yes.
And by extension, what I'm saying is certain industries will never stand in Singapore because we are island city that has no suburbs, no rural. We got no,
We got no natural big
we
market.
got no big market.
hinterland.
There's just nothing. A lot of those things don't exist. You have no variance in those kind of like this whole 30%, 20-30 thing, like trying to grow our own veggies. All that. Come on, man,
right.
bak choy $6. You want to buy? You're not gonna buy. Impossible. My friends are in the industry. It's like impossible. That was not gonna work. Nothing will beat the sun, sand, soil, sea and water, natural ones. Nothing will beat how nature, grows veggies, right? And so whatever resources that we put in is gonna end up doing like those like microgreens. It's just like those atas vegetables, right?
It's things that you can sell for a higher price,
Yes.
right? Because that's how these businesses
Exactly.
survive.
Right.
Avocados
So the
lah.
industries.
Avocados the oversupply, right?
So what I'm saying is the market and the industries are fundamentally limited and will always be limited. So I want Singaporeans to kind of like be a bit more realistic lah, right? Like,
And it's interesting that you actually raised that because I didn't pick up on that when I was reading the document. I picked up on something else altogether.
Sure.
For me, it was all about how like the government seemed to be promising and committing that they're going to continue to attract all the big MNCs, the established companies, basically those where, when you're a kid, I'm like, I want to work at Dyson or Facebook or whatever, Apple or whatever company, our dream job. Getting these companies in, and that was what I saw in the document. And not just that, but also when these companies come in, it's not about them bringing all their people from abroad, but opening up that to more Singaporeans to be part of the workforce and not just at whatever mandated ratios that you have to fulfill. It's really skill sharing, letting Singaporeans be part of these global organizations, big organizations. And I caught on the part where they say they want to help the Singaporeans to even rise up the ranks of these established. And they had one example of that, right? If I remember correctly, it was like a female in a really high position in one of the regional or global
Yeah, I can't
companies
remember
that was
it, yes,
cited.
yes.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact page and example, but I picked up on that. And I thought that was important because right after reading that 180 pages, I saw the news about Hong Kong, where they were losing a lot of the big companies moving to Singapore. But the news also says when these companies move to Singapore, they uplift their regional directors and all into Singapore.
Of
So
course.
it actually increases the imported foreign labor. But what we want to see is
My rent is going up again. It's terrible.
they come here, but we have more jobs for Singaporeans and a chance for Singaporeans to rise up in these paths.
You know what? My thing is, right, that has been the narrative for 30 years.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
It has
Look,
never
for me,
succeeded.
Isn't it a
I
commitment to make
completely
it
disagree
succeed?
with this.
No, but we have
No.
had 30 years. We have tried this for 30 years. We have
30 years.
so
It will
many
never.
regional HQs here.
Yes.
We have two people to name as example.
For me, that I was like, okay, so you're too scared to change the template. When I read that, that's exactly what I thought. Because I feel your forward Singapore should be, how do we make Singaporeans the next big company?
Yeah.
How do we make Singapore companies the next big company?
sorry,
How do we
I'm
make it a
skeptical, but you
razor?
cannot.
How do we make
yeah.
creative, right?
Yeah.
These are Singapore-based companies.
Yes.
TikTok is a Singaporean, but he had to start it in where?
Yeah.
How do we make and give them the platform to say, start here, we help you grow? Look what China did in the 90s.
And maybe this is the point where Singapore companies go and say, fine, I won't hire a foreign CEO. I give a local a chance.
My point.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
My point.
Exactly.
Very, very
But the
cynically.
document never say that.
Of course, we are the only people in the world where we prefer others over
We
ourselves.
discriminate our own people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
we
enough.
like hiring very, atas, very high position people over. We
Correct.
like to say that there's skills transfer, but
No,
I mean,
come on.
there are
There is some,
we
some.
work a lot around the region, right? There are so many. You go to Indonesia, you go to Philippines, you go to Malaysia. It's so difficult to fire locals. There's so much mandatory training to
Yes.
make that skills transfer happen. Do we have any here?
Yes.
There's a lot of mention of training,
Yeah.
right? But so I think that the reality is that what the government wants is jobs. They need people employed, preferably air conditioned, preferably in a good location, high-rise tower, so I got commercial real estate values, right? Because nobody really wants to work in the sun very hot, then people get tan and like sweaty and all that. Not good for MRT also. Ventilation very bad. That is the goal, right? The goal is to get jobs for the population. Ideally good, comfortable jobs that they find meaning with. But if they don't find meaning in that, then it's a good, comfortable job that allows them to survive and they find meaning outside.
Wait, one more thing. A good, comfortable job that can find meaning outside while having work-life balance. You forgot.
Oh, sorry, no, right. We don't have work-life balance anymore. We have work-life harmony.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. You gotta extend your suffix, bro.
And this should be the shot. Okay, we're cutting this out for the shot.
No, but exactly, right? I when I read it, I was like, same tune, right? Nothing has changed, right? We need to start to protect some of these things, right? To prioritize our hiring of our locals, right? And that is a great place to start.
Okay,
right?
but I'm very cynical. I'm sorry. How many DBSs and Piyush Guptas can we have really?
Well, have you given them a chance? Have you given them the chance?
So
I think it's
is he
honestly
Singaporean?
small.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
I feel it is more likely that we have what's that TikTok guy? We really need to get his
No,
name
you
so I can
see,
start posting.
this is the thinking, right? Why are we thinking like this?
It's hard. Okay, and
No,
I'm being
but
a cynic
on-
here
on
because
what-
our
on what?
market size is small. That's the
So?
reality. We
Yeah.
have to
No.
go beyond
Let
Singapore.
me tell you something. There are a lot of Singaporeans outside of Singapore in big organizations. Bring them back.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we don't have a big enough organization for them to come back to. If it is, then it will be your DBSs, your UOB. There's
We
only
have
so
a
many
lot of big organizations.
that are Singaporean.
Okay.
How many are there really?
Okay,
Just look at the Singapore stock market.
I get the point that we, let's say Albert Ng, right? He is CEO of Google Brain, Singaporean. Well, quasi Singaporean in a sense, studied in Singapore.
Naturalized. Naturalized.
I think he might still be Hong Konger.
Okay.
Then super big, right? CEO of Google Brain. He'll never come to Singapore. That's fine, right? What I am concerned about with all these MNC points is really, fine. You want to hire these people back in. You want to lead the regional sub. Great, love it. You should bring all this foreign talent in. I agree, right? And maybe the next one or the next one can be a local, or like the -1, -2 can be locals. That's fine. But then the reality. The reality is that we are not really only bringing in these people. We are bringing in the fresh MBAs that don't really have work experience.
Yeah.
And then, they are like late 20s, early 30s. Does the MNC really need these people? Is there really no equivalent in Singapore? Even if they were 5 years more experience, don't have an MBA, right? That could have done this job.
So actually, in all fairness, now we've been talking about this for quite a while, but to move this conversation on a little bit, there has been some movement with regards to getting your EPs and all of that the foreigners are finding it hard to even maintain the same job when they apply and renew, right? So I do want to point out that they are trying to make some strides in this regard. But the point I'm trying to bring up is Singapore, I feel this document didn't address the fact that they still see Singaporeans as executioners.
Yes.
For me, that's a big issue.
Yeah.
We should be creating critical thinkers, innovative thinkers that go outside of the box and create something. And it doesn't matter if you fail, because we'll have all the support to make sure that your next one or your 7th one or your 8th one will be the one that makes it big.
Yeah, and we have a whole generation of people that have already went abroad to study abroad, get the best practices, work in MNCs, move on regional positions. But it's like...
No, I mean, okay, there are a lot of outreach efforts to bring them back, right? So I think we studied in Australia, there was always these IE Singapore people who wanted to come and talk to you. Oh, contact Singapore, right? We can't come and talk to you, that sort of thing. So I think that there is that push to bring people back. But I think ideally, what I would like to see is where we have all these people who want to try, who want to do something different. That is not just a white collar job, a corporate job. They should be trying in Singapore, right? They should not be, I need to go to the US to try to succeed. I need to go to UK to try to succeed. Why can we create an environment for them? I know we have a lack of a big market here. If we want to go regional, it's painful because there's so many different languages, so many different regulations, so that fine, right? So we have all these structural disadvantages as Singapore, but we also have advantages, right? Can we use that to create an environment for these people to succeed?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to say I disagree in the sense that I do see the government trying. And I actually do see
they have been
that.
trying for 30 years.
No,
So
but
we're
I
not
do
saying they're
see
not trying.
more results coming in now, in the sense that it is not so like last time. If you start up your own business and you fail, you get shunned, right? You get looked down upon. Now, the odds of that happening, I see, is lesser. There's also more grants being given to help lengthen the runways
Just wanna
of all
point
these
out,
entrepreneurs and
You know how
startups.
hard it is to get a grant?
It is.
wait.
But I do see that they're trying.
We need to give them and say, for example, he said, don't push them towards the heart and hand workers, the garbage truck drivers and the construction workers. I feel you should push them towards innovation. Create something new. That should be the job that everybody aspires to get. Something new in the world that can make a change. Or it's something new in Singapore to make Singapore better.
Fair. And to be fair, that is a situation where I think we need to change some of the fundamental social policies.
Yeah.
Okay, with CPF, with housing, with everything. Because I do hear a lot of my entrepreneur friends, a lot of them tell me, oh bro, because I need to accumulate my CPF. I need to get the house because I need to
Pay for my kids.
Pay for my kids. I need all these things. Right?
Like, life catches up with you.
Yeah,
lah.
and life catches up with you. So and to be fair, this is a reality across the world. It's not unique to Singaporean entrepreneurs or
I'm one of those, by the way.
Yeah, right. So all these things catches up. You kind of move on. But if this is where we want, if we want to move Singaporeans up the value chain, we can no longer just do the MNC executioner roles.
Yeah.
Right? If we want to move Singapore up the value chain, which we want, if we want to take Singapore to the next level, our people need to be in the board. Our people need to be making
Our people need to
leadership
be
roles.
next level
Yes,
also.
our people need to move to the next level. So our businesses and our ideas and the way we structure our stuff needs to get us to that level, right?
Yeah.
We need to get our businesses out into the regions. I think IE Singapore is doing a little bit more jobs these days, which is great, right? I see a lot more effort. So that is great, right? Because only when our businesses go abroad and when we emotionally blackmail them to hire Singaporeans, right? So,
Very important.
yeah,
very
important, and do it in a social. This is a socially right. You should hire Singaporeans in your leadership role, right? So as a government, we support our companies abroad. We reduce the friction for them to expand overseas. At the same time, we make it morally right to hire Singaporeans in your senior leadership roles. Only then we can develop a situation where more and more Singaporeans move up the value chain.
Agree.
Because all the banks here that I talk to, Japanese bank, Korean bank, German bank, French bank, as long as it's not from this country, all the head is from that country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
See,
so if that is the case, Singapore companies need to hire Singaporeans first, and we as a society need to, push from all levels. Right, government, I'm sure they are trying to do something. Businesses need to do something. We as a platform, we also need to talk about it.
As people who are actually workforce, you also need to upskill.
Yes,
and
of course.
Like when you are given the opportunity, seize it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, yes,
I mean,
yes.
and I think one of the ways, now it could be very controversial, but I think one of the ways that the government can help here is to try and make sure that we promote Singaporeans to the top of these Korean banks and all of that. Even a simple...
It was just banks, other
honestly-
industries
No, I mean
also
any other company,
Biopharma,
any other company, right? I feel that you could even throw in some sort of a rebate or a subsidy.
Yeah,
like
tax rebate.
If X number of percentage in your C-suites are Singaporeans, you get X back,
Fair.
for example. Now, it shouldn't be as high that you're going to hit Peter's principle and promote any Singaporean. But it should be just enough that if this guy is going to be the same as a foreigner, instead of importing, I'm going to promote Singaporean and get that added benefit.
You heard this idea first on Wise and Shine. Okay, but to continue, I think that might happen. I think it will happen in the future because if we understand what changed in EPs, right? I work in that sector, so
Yes.
I
There
can
you go,
explain,
please.
right?
Yeah.
Compass, which went live just in September, they have different frameworks on how the points that they allocate to companies in order for you to bring in your foreigner and get that work pass. And one of the criteria includes how many % of your workforce is Singaporean. So I think they're starting now by making it a rule.
No, for me, that's not enough.
Yeah,
Yes, no, it's a start. I see it as a start. Then
But-
you're
but
starting
that's always
first
been
at
there
your
with SPAS.
workforce. No, but it's more now. So now it's EP. Not just SPAS, now it's EP, which has a much higher salary qualification.
Right.
So they're making that mandatory now as part of the framework. And then later on, I see the next natural step is to move that up to the leadership, to the C-suite. It won't happen
No, you see,
overnight.
cynically, I'll tell you no, because the concern is that I need enough, again, sorry to use the banks as a bashing board, enough back office worker drones to fill up my office and say I have 80% local workforce.
Yes.
Yeah.
100% of my leadership is foreign, but I have 80% local workforce.
Yeah, but what we are saying is that
But
we want them to
but
have
that's
the
exactly what
leadership.
your quota does, right? Your quota does is an entire population of the company, which is then we go. I have 80%.
For now.
I
But
don't
No,
think
think
it's going to
the
change.
But
beginning
no,
step.
exactly.
Let me tell you
The
why it's
point
not
is-
going to change. It's in the document. We need to bring in MNCs to help
Yeah,
and
that's
growth.
Yeah,
and
they,
it's
they,
in
they
that
are still
it's not gonna
concerned with that
change.
80%. They are not concerned
Yes.
with getting that 20% into the leadership.
Yes.
Yeah, which is why we're saying that the next change that they need to and they
No, but-
must
but-
do, please, government listen.
Yeah, no, so I think
Is
if we're
to
getting to
give
what they
to the
should do,
leadership, yes.
I agree, this is what they should
Yeah,
do.
I agree.
I don't think it's, I just disagree that it's on the cards.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
not.
lah, maybe
It's not on
I'm
the
too
cards.
optimistic.
I don't see it.
It's not
enough.
on the cards.
Yeah, no, and
I really hope we're proven wrong.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I hope
I don't
after
think
this
it's on the
it becomes on the card.
Yeah.
lah.
And to be fair, we still hold on to the line of prudence. Okay, in the later part of the document, there's still a lot of this discussion about prudence. But if we want to move our nation to this level, we need to risk. We need to take on risks, right? So we need to look at, can we take on some special budgets, in the Bs, right? To explore some of these policies and cannot just be tied to prudent. Essentially, we want BAU, but success, right? We want BAU, business as usual, but change, right? It's very hard, right? So, and we've talked about this in many other of our podcasts. If you want to develop, you must start it a bit, then you can invest and then go further, right? So there's a lot of that. And I think we as a nation need to do more rather than just skills future. Skills future is great. Okay. I think it's closing up a little bit of a gap. Multiple iterations in is much better. What started as a SME boss not willing to invest in my people, I invest in them. It has moved into, maybe this thing can kind of work on a bigger front, right? So I think that's good. But I want to see more support for this kind of like transitionary leadership development where we move our nation up into the next echelon, right? And it is a must. If not, it will not change a lot of the problems that the middle class is facing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What we want to see is more Singapore startups who fail but succeed, or can keep failing but will succeed, and they're not being discriminated or they don't lose out in the failure stage. We want to see also in the established companies in the professional world that are already there and stable. We want to see more Singaporeans rise up to the leadership roles. And then at the same time, we also want to see more recognition for everything else in between.
Yeah. Oh, and I think one thing I want to add is just, I think the Singapore Global Network is doing quite a good job. With trying to connect Singaporeans into the region, right, and also abroad, right, and I think there's about 200,000 Singaporeans in different parts of the world, and this is something that I feel like it's high time we do more. They only have 5 headcount in Singapore. Okay, I know the people, so I know what is their headcount, and based on the headcount, you can estimate the budgets that they have, right? So I think we got to realistically tell ourselves that, okay, we want to grow Singaporeans in a leadership role. We want to move up the value chain. But at the same time, there are a lot of professionals that get redundant here, but they can thrive in, let's say, Vietnam because the industry shift over, or they can thrive in Jakarta. And we need to open up that kind of optionality and support, reduce the friction for Singaporeans to move around. And that is stated in the Forward Singapore movement. So I think that's something that I just want to add. It's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Any last things? What, very intense. I love it. Any last things?
Well, I think we only really talked about jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, jobs like
we
butter,
talk
okay, bread and
about
butter.
jobs, business, economy. That's part
we
one.
tied together, ma.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's part one.
very
Part
good.
two
Yeah.
is the hard.
I wanted to
Yes.
complain about work-life harmony, but it's okay. We'll save that for another time.
Part two, work-life harmony, work-life harmony.